What if the best books are not the ones that give you answers, but the ones that leave you with better questions? That's exactly how I felt after reading this book, Why the Poor Don't Kill Us, by Manu Joseph, The Psychology of Indians. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Book Reviews by Aditya. On this channel, I review books on several topics like history, politics, society, culture, and literature. If you enjoy discovering books that challenge the way we think, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you do enjoy this review, don't forget to like it and share it with a fellow reader. Now, let's talk about this book. This is one of the after reading the title, I knew that I had to read this book because the title itself grabs your attention. It is provocative, it is uncomfortable, and frankly, it is impossible to ignore. Naturally, your first expectation would be that this book will answer all your questions, but that's not really true. The book basically, the author writes in a style that is very sharp, very witty, and often sarcastic. He has a talent for looking at familiar subjects from completely unexpected angles. There were several moments where I had to pause, not because the writing was difficult, because the ideas deserve reflection. And even when I disagreed with him, I wanted to keep reading. To me, that is one of the biggest strengths in the book. So, if you look at the contents itself, the topics like how we provoke, how India's chaos and ugliness is designed to assure the poor, how hate united rich and poor, what moneylenders view, let the poor have fun, despite India, revenge of the poor. These sort of chapters, once you start reading this book, you'll get to know why it is so popular. Uh, the author's note itself, once you read it, why is there peace between the classes in one of the most unequal regions on earth? And when I read the first chapter itself, I had bought this book with a lot of expectations, and frankly, I was not disappointed at all. The first chapter itself talks about an incident during the Gujarat earthquake that had taken place in 2001, where Manu Joseph had gone as a reporter, and there was another person. Basically, he had met someone who had lost his entire family in the earthquake, but Manu Joseph wanted to ask about the directions to a particular place. And even in that moment of grief, that person was able to tell him the directions. So basically, yeah, this line in which he says that. If I'll read this, the man whose family was buried beneath his feet intervened and began to give me directions in a very elaborate way. I'm certain there are theories to explain this behavior, but we'll never know what's going on in his mind. Honestly, I mean, and if you see, I'll just read some of the really interesting portions of this book. So, for example, if we go to page number 20, this is the chapter itself, Why the Poor Don't Kill Us, and that. This line basically, most nations try hard to look richer than they are. India in plain sight is a lot poorer than it is in reality. For examples, how politicians scam the poor. These are the chapters you would not be normally expecting this kind of a headline over the conclusions the author comes. But once you go through it, you'll get exactly. And for example, this false hope of higher education. Now, this is something that is very relevant, especially considering the NEET exam. Leaks that was going on, because of which the education minister, Mr. Pradhan, had to resign after a lot of protests from the students. And honestly, it's a good thing that there should be some sort of an accountability. I'm in fully support of that. And coming back to the book itself, there are some other interesting chapters as well. For example, on page 32 itself, if I'll just go to page 32, I've just earmarked some of the chapters. So, for example, how we provoke, and basically, this line is actually, there's this very unspoken sense that low standards will do for the poor. India's very definition of comfort is a state that is inaccessible to the poor. But that points out the hypocrisy of the entire country, not just a section of the people, say the rich or the uber rich or the billionaires or the multimillionaires. Basically, yeah, that's what it is. There's another chapter on page 56. There's another line on page 56. For example, India's public chaos, like its architectural ugliness, convey to the poor that the nation is something like them poor. So this is a very interesting observation, and this is something that's very hard to find in today's commentary on social issues or something. Uh, this author, he has written some non-fiction books as well. I've not read those, but I'll try to read them when I get hold of those books. For example, Serious Men, The Illicit Happiness of Other People, Laila, Armed and Dangerous. He's also a very famous columnist with the Outlook, with the Open magazine. He was with the Open magazine. Right now, he's with New York Times. I think so. I've read his columns in some other places as well. Like I've read at least 4 5 of his columns, and the observations there are very very interesting. For example, this chapter itself: the poor are the worst enemies of the poor. For example, the rich do harm the poor in invisible and complex ways, but the most visibly violent and unjust experiences are within various sections of the poor. So there are like there's this line on poor migrants across the world. The poor and lower middle class despise poor migrants because these migrants first compete for resources and jobs with the poor residents and not editorial writers and developmental economists. So, for example, this it has also a very very interesting anecdote on Jaideep Sahani, who is the screenwriter. Here it is. Jaideep Sahani is the screenwriter for Chak De India. When he decided to like cover the Indian women's hockey team, he was not really sure if he's going to make this movie, but how it led to the movie, that's a very interesting journey. There was one line where I disagreed with him. I'll just I've pointed it out. Basically, humanitarianism has become a magnet for the mentally unstable who are compelled to a wish to see unhappiness in everything. But even then, I mean, obviously, I could be wrong, I could be right, but this is a very very interesting book which you would, I mean, if you're someone who does not want to find easy answers, or who does not believe in expecting like definitive answers to everything, someone who's willing to be challenged, someone who's comfortable with disagreeing with the prevailing notions that are going around in the world, or generally the stereotypes, so that kind of a person would really enjoy this book. So I would recommend this with this small qualification. And for example, one thing that I appreciated is that the author is not really interested in pleasing every single person. He's excuse me, he's questioning popular narratives, criticizing conventional wisdom, and sometimes arriving at conclusions that many readers may find controversial. But that's a good thing, because if you're not really a people pleaser, then you'll be honest, and that honesty is what the world needs right now, basically. So there are a lot of lines actually in this book that is very very interesting. For example, the impossibility is talking about the global right and left wing, and for example, all elites like parents are like parents, conservative at home, liberal elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, you may agree, you may disagree, but it is actually pretty interesting. So this also talking about an incident during the Gujarat riots, and it is also talking about a lot of things about to Saif Ali Khan when he was stabbed by a stabbed during, I think so last year it was I think so it was last year. Uh, so the he covers a lot of those things. How politicians calm the poor. This chapter is actually very interesting because normally the way we think, for example, this falls of hope of higher education, because normally how we think or how the prevailing mentality is, that's, I'm not really sure that is close to the truth, and that's what this book tries to discover. So overall I would say, I mean, I really enjoyed this book. I mean, I didn't agree with every single thing, but I don't really think that's the point. This book succeeds because it encourages readers to think independently, and that is one of the highest compliments that I can give for any work of nonfiction. If you've already read this book, I would love to know what you think about it. Which essay stayed with you the most? Was there an argument that you strongly agreed with or disagreed with? Let me know about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, please like this video and share with your fellow readers, and subscribe to my channel Book Reviews by Aditya for more reviews on history, politics, society, culture, and literature. I have reviewed 3 books till now. Basically, this one, The Great Indian Brain Rot by Anurag Minus Verma, Professor Avikant Kisana's book Meet the Savarnas. I have also done a small review of this book, Freedom at Midnight, which is actually a really, really interesting book. I'll try to do a full review of it as well. Currently, I'm also reading this book, Munich, by Robert Harris. It's basically about the 1938 Munich Agreement, and it is also a feature film has been made on this book as well. Munich, The Edge of War. It's on Netflix. So I try to review as many books as possible, because reading gives me a kind of a intellectual satisfaction, a kind of a pleasure that really not many things can give me, honestly. I've tried writing, I've tried a lot of other things, but reading is something I used to love it. I've come back to it after a long time, so I'll continue doing that. And it helps you explore your innermost feelings. I mean, deal with a lot of things and also the best part is it prevents you from getting into the trap of doom scrolling, which I am actually. I spend hours and hours on Instagram, so I'm trying to take time out to read books more. So yeah, thanks for the watching this whole video, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you.